He fell to the floor of the 173. His school uniform was soaked red. Passengers screamed. Someone called for help. A paramedic's voice shouted instructions as they climbed aboard. Tyler's eyes were half closed. His world was slipping away on a bus full of strangers. Just minutes earlier, it had been an ordinary Monday afternoon. Tyler had finished school and headed for the bus stop. He wore his uniform. He looked tired but calm.
Very dramatic day in court as a young man learned his fate. He beat his girlfriend's little boy to death because he wouldn't stop crying.
He stepped onto the 173 as it ran through Chadwell Heath. It was 3:55 p.m. The bus rolled down High Road. Passengers chatted. Some pushed prams. Others gazed out the windows. Tyler stood near the front, gripping the strap, eyes ahead. He carried no weapon. He had no idea what was coming. Inside the bus, silence broke. A figure appeared. Young man. He moved quickly. He carried something hidden under his coat. Tyler's heart sped up. He took a step back. He had no time. The man pulled out a zombie blade. It was nearly half a meter long. Wide blade, shiny, final. Tyler froze. Time slowed. Passengers gasped. Some shrank into their seats. The man lunged. The steel pierced Tyler's arm, then his chest. He gasped. Pain exploded. No words. Tyler slumped. Life drained. Doors whooshed. The bus continued on, unaware. His friend stood nearby. She cried out. He was on the floor, his uniform soaked. Strangers jumped up. Some called 999. Others comforted her. One parent covered a crying child's ears. Outside, on the street, chaos stirred. The bus doors opened. The ground floor turned into a scene of panic. Paramedics rushed in. They knelt by Tyler, monitored his pulse, spoke to him. They carried him out, carried him off the bus. One paramedic wrapped an arm, another called dispatch. Tyler lay on a stretcher. The street watched. A crowd gathered. Phones recorded. Silence hung heavier than words. The weapon was left behind. The culprit vanished. He pushed past, run down a side street, gone. Minutes later, a witness followed him. A silent pursuit. He phoned the police. He said where the man was hiding. Officers ran into a backyard, behind a wall. He crouched there, no weapon in hand, but he flinched at the sirens. He was arrested, nearby, hands in the air, no fight. Tyler was rushed to hospital. Staff worked on him. Heated exchange of words. Machines beeped. But his injuries were too severe. He passed away in the early hours of the next day. The end came quietly. The school uniform was gone. Only grief remained. Back on the bus, lines of tape marked the window. The seats were stained. Officers searched for clues. The scene was silent. Southwark Crown Court later called it a revenge spell. A jury heard how Tyler taunted a gang in a drill track he posted online 3 weeks earlier. That track mocked rivals. The court said it sparked the outbreak. The prosecutor described the sharp tool plunging more than 9 inches. The term cold-blooded was repeated. Unarmed and vulnerable kept coming up, but now was not the time for courtroom strategy. Now was the moment of loss, the moment when a young life was stolen. The street outside felt different. The bus route felt contaminated. Tyler's world ended on a bus. School uniforms and dreams remained behind. The next step would be to understand who Tyler was and why it ended like this. Tyler Hurley grew up in Romford, East London. He was the youngest in his family. His mother worked long shifts. His father was not in the home. It was his mother who carried most of the weight of raising him. The family said he was quiet at home, polite to elders. He had a close relationship with his younger cousins. He would help them with schoolwork and sometimes take them to the park. His grandmother described him as the kind of boy who always hugged you before leaving the room. From an early age, Tyler had an interest in sports. Boxing caught his attention at 12. He joined a local amateur club. The trainers saw potential. His footwork was quick. His stamina was impressive. One coach said he could go round after round without losing focus. Boxing gave him structure. Early mornings, strict diet. Tyler liked the discipline. He competed in local youth tournaments, won a few, lost some. He dreamed of going professional one day. He followed major boxing matches online. Posters of his favorite fighters hung on his bedroom wall. But outside the gym, The streets had their own pull. His school was near areas marked by rival groups. Some boys he knew had older brothers in gangs. The names of those gangs were whispered around playgrounds and shouted in drill tracks. By 14, he was spending more time outside the gym. The boxing coach tried to keep him focused. "Don't waste your talent," he told him. Tyler listened, but the streets were louder. He started writing drill lyrics in a notebook. At first, it was about daily life, school, friends, local slang. Over time, the content shifted. Rivalry crept into the words. Names and incidents got mentioned. Those who knew the code could understand the targets of the bars. His online presence began to grow. He recorded tracks with friends. They uploaded them to YouTube and Snapchat. Some videos showed Tyler in school uniform, others in streetwear with a hood up. In his area, music wasn't just music. It could start trouble or keep it going. Lyrics were seen as challenges. Videos became part of a bigger conversation between rival groups, a conversation that could turn vicious. At home, his mother didn't fully grasp the risk. She thought music was just a hobby. She worried more about him staying out late. Sometimes they argued about curfew. Tyler would say he was just with friends. Teachers described him as capable, but distracted. His grades slipped in year 10. He still showed up most days, but focus in class was inconsistent. A few teachers tried to connect him with mentoring programs. Friends from boxing noticed the change too. He skipped training sessions. When he did show up, his mind seemed elsewhere. In Romford and neighbouring Dagenham, tensions between groups were not new. Police were aware of flare-ups. Local youth workers tried to intervene, but social media often made it harder. A single post could undo months of quiet. By 16, Tyler had two separate lives. In the gym, he was a promising athlete with discipline and drive. On the streets, he was known as Chucky, connected to a Romford group in conflict with rivals from Dagenham. Friends said he was loyal. If someone insulted his group, he took it personally. That loyalty showed in his lyrics. It was part pride, part defense. He still lived at home with his mother. She kept a tidy flat. His bedroom was small, with a single bed, boxing gear in the corner, and a desk covered in notebooks and trainers. She would hear music late at night from his room, sometimes the same verse repeated over and over. In early 2022, he released a track online. It was sharper in tone than before. Certain lines were aimed at the Dagenham group. People from both sides saw it. Some laughed. Others took offense. It was not forgotten. The weeks leading up to March were restless. Tyler had been confronted once before. That time, he escaped without injury. Afterward, he made comments online that were taken as more taunts. His mother noticed he was coming home later. She asked if he was okay. He said he was fine. She reminded him to keep up with schoolwork. At school, some classmates knew there was tension. They didn't talk about it in front of teachers. Tyler's world at 16 was a tight loop between home, school, the gym, and the streets. Each had its own rules. Navigating them all was becoming harder. In private moments, he still spoke about his boxing goals, about traveling to fight in other cities, about getting sponsorships. But those close to him also saw the pull of the other life. Family members tried to keep him busy with positive activities. They invited him to family gatherings, asked him to help with younger children. He was good with them, patient and playful. But the phone in his pocket buzzed often. Messages came in. Sometimes he stepped outside to answer them. The path he was on was becoming more dangerous. But for those around him, the full picture was not visible. Some saw only the polite young boxer. Others saw the drill artist with sharp words for rivals. The balance between those two sides was fragile. And as winter turned into spring in 2022, the tension outside his home was building. It would not be long before it broke. An ordinary school day turned to tension. The drill track Tyler posted 3 weeks earlier rippled through the local scene. It was not just lyrics, it was a message. He had mocked a rival group. He had named names. The video circulated widely. People noticed. Some took offense. Others whispered. The group saw it as a challenge. They were from Dagenham. Tyler was from Romford. The rivalry was old. It had no winners. Members watched his moves. They knew when he posted online. They knew his routines. They knew the route he took home. One afternoon, Tyler survived an incident. He was walking home. Someone followed him. He got away. No one was arrested. It was dismissed as teenagers fooling around. but some took notes. Tyler posted again. The tone in the new video was sharper. He doubled down. It was another layer of provocation. Sometime after school, he entered the 173 buses. He didn't look for trouble. He looked tired, but he was under observation. Someone recognized him immediately. One rival was already on the bus. He carried 2 zombie tools. One was hidden under a coat. He had a plan. It was revenge. As the sharp object was pulled, the act was almost rehearsed. It was sudden, but the preparation was clear. It took seconds. No one expected it. For the police, the outbreak was recorded on CCTV. They had proof. They had movement of the culprit around the bus. They saw the weapon emerge. They saw the blow strike. They saw the flash of shock on Tyler's face. They had the bus's internal footage. They saw the struggle. They saw the fear in other passengers. They saw how quickly life changed. Detectives acted fast. They identified the weapon. One passenger called it a zombie blade. The length was about 68 centimeters. Very large, very lethal. They knew they did a corruption of revenge. They knew the suspect families. They knew the territory. They connected the drill video to the outbreak. They tracked the phone that uploaded the track. They questioned school friends. They looked for any footage before the bus boarded. Someone recorded a clip at the bus stop. It was blurry, but it showed Tyler talking, joking, unaware. They traced the last person seen with him before he boarded. They tracked other phones. They examined social media messages. Everyone became part of the timeline. They identified the culprit. He was 19. He had a known history with rival crews. He had posted pictures of sharp weapons on his phone. He was from Queens Road Estate. Officers monitored him. They waited. And if you find stories like this important, consider subscribing. They had enough to arrest him without using force. They arrested him behind a wall where he tried to hide. A member of the public had followed him from the bus. That witness phone call gave the location. Police charged him with homicide. They also added weapons offenses. He pleaded not guilty. Psychologists assessed him. They evaluated his risk and motive. They reviewed his background. They reviewed his messages and uploads. Tyler's family absorbed the shock. They learned about the drill video only after the arrest. They felt conflicted. They mourned. They questioned. Community rallies started. Parents worried about the bus route. Residents demanded safer streets. A local councillor called a meeting. She promised action. She said, "No child should be targeted like this." At the police station, officers set up patrols along Tyler's route home. They changed the 173's path temporarily. They checked CCTV along the road. They offered escorts to students. Detectives reconstructed the sequence in detail. They prepared for trial. They gathered evidence. They secured the weapon. They collected witness statements. They recorded the bus driver's account. They looked at Tyler's movements after school. They checked his social media again. They found messages from someone encouraging him to meet up. They traced them. They also looked at uncles and cousins in the Romford area. They spoke to them, not to scare them, to get insight. They heard about Tyler's plans, his hopes for boxing, his creative side. They pieced together who he was as a person. This investigation became more than facts. It became a story of a life divided, a life torn between promise and provocation. Investigators shared memories with local youth mentors. They said, "This is why words matter. Choose your fights carefully." The case would go to trial. Evidence would tell the story. Shock turned into sorrow. Anger turned into resolve. Tyler's voice, once alive in tracks and school corridors, had become evidence. And now, the law had to answer for the world that had stolen it. Police had built their case before entering the courtroom. The arrest had already been made, swift, precise. Evidence was gathered, examined, and secured. Now, it was time for justice to be carried out publicly. In Southwark Crown Court, the room was packed before the judge entered. Reporters crowded together, notebooks in hand. Family members filled the seats to the side. They held pictures of Tyler. Some carried flowers, others wore boxing gloves, silent tributes to the boy who had once fought in a ring. The accused stood at the dock. Carlton Tanue, 19. He had pleaded not guilty at first, but now the verdict was in. The air was heavy. Everyone was waiting. The judge took his seat. The foreman of the jury stood up. His voice broke the stillness. "Guilty of taking a life." Each word felt final. One by one, Tyler's culprits were named. Guilt was handed down like a verdict of broken childhood. As the sentence was read, Tyler's family watched in silence. The judge spoke of betrayal, of a tool that ended a life only seconds after it had started. He condemned the ferocity and named the motive revenge for a drill track posted online. Every phrase carried weight. The boy's mother held her breath. Her sister cried softly. No one looked away. Tanua nodded when the life sentence was announced. A minimum of 26 years behind bars before parole could even be considered. 2 years and 6 months for prior weapons offenses would run at the same time. The sentence was harsh, but few believed it could ever be fair. Outside the courthouse, Detective Chief Inspector Mark Rogers spoke to the waiting press. He praised the witnesses who came forward. He named a brave member of the public who chased the culprit on foot and gave his location to the police. Without that act, Tanua might have disappeared. That courage was part of why justice was possible. The statement resonated with residents. The bus route ran again that day, but the faces of those waiting at the stops carried the memory. Parents stood closer to their children. School routes felt different. A judge's sentence couldn't erase fear, but law and short sentences mattered. Inside the courtroom, Tyler's coach attended the sentencing. He had been invited by the family. In court, he spoke about the boy's potential. He said Tyler had wanted to represent his country one day. He had entered every tournament with the same question. What's next? He carried no weapon, only ambition. Legal teams awaited the appeal window, but for many, the trial was the last chance at peace. There were no more surprises in the courtroom. The presentation of evidence had been thorough: CCTV, phone records, weapon evidence, witness testimony, each element irrefutable. Friends of Tyler who came forward felt relief when the verdict was delivered. They had sat in court and answered questions under oath. They recalled the day, the fear, the aftermath. Their voices helped create the timeline. The trial included statements from classmates. One spoke of Tyler's smile. Another spoke of his plans for a future beyond boxing, studying business, or becoming a youth mentor. Those lines were not in the courtroom. They were in the corridors outside, in whispered memories. As sentencing closed, the judge addressed Tanua directly. He said the loss would follow Tyler's family every day. He asked them to remember the boy beyond the uniform, beyond the last seconds on the bus. At the end, the gavel fell. It echoed in the courtroom and in hearts across East London. Justice had been served, but grief would remain. Outside the court, community leaders gathered. They spoke of prevention, of schools, of safer zones, of ending weapon culture, one conversation at a time. One mother said softly, "We owe Tyler that much." Others nodded. A vigil was held that evening at the site of the outbreak. Residents left flowers. Students read out Tyler's name. Some held candles, some held boxes of gloves. Their small ceremony was quiet, but there was strength in the silence. For the Hurley family, the verdict changed nothing of what happened. It only confirmed it. Their son had been stolen. His life ended in a blink. Now, decades would pass before the man who took his life could apply to leave prison. As roads reopened and buses resumed their routes, a sense of fragility remained. Lives can change in a single moment. Words can lead to acts. Justice may follow, but healing takes time. This case closed on a judge's ruling. But for the community and for his family, Tyler's story would continue in the spaces between loss and memory, learning, preventing, remembering.